Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this session. In front of you is Danny Cohen. What lots of you don't know is that Danny Cohen's first job was a security detail in television. He actually was a minder for camera equipment in Oxford for a friend of mine, Ruth Pitt. And he became so obsessed with this that he did work experience at real life television. Then he went to Diverse, and then he went to E4, then he went to Channel 4 to Docs, and then he went back to run E4, and then he went to BBC 3, and then, as we say, the rest is history. You'd rather be at the Modern Family Masterclass, wouldn't you?
I couldn't comment on that. What about you?
Oh, I'd probably rather be there. No.
Can we have some questions from the floor, please?
Anyway, he's had 18 months as the controller of BBC One. He's been spent that time wrangling the biggest channel in the UK. Let's look at what he's been doing. Well, that was then, and this is now. And in the course of this session, we're going to find out what Danny Cohen is looking for from all of you, and also later on in the session, take 10 minutes or so of questions. Sorry it's so oversold, but I think it's a measure of just how much we want to hear what Danny has got to say. First of all, you must be pretty happy this morning after Elizabeth Murdoch's speech. Send her flowers?
No, I haven't sent her flowers, no. But yeah, I thought it was a good speech. It was great to see her support for the licence fee. We always like licence payers to support the licence fee. So, yeah.
Good speech.
Yeah, good speech.
She talked, though, about the exuberant Olympic coverage. And, of course, that has been the overwhelming success on BBC One. How did you make a decision about how to approach the coverage, particularly in the studio?
Well, the first thing to say is I didn't do that on my own. You know, there's a very large team of people.
Don't you do everything on your own?
No.
Let's hope you do some commissioning on your own.
Oh, we're starting. You know, those decisions are made by a group of people, so I don't think, certainly I should claim any individual credit for it. We decided the lineup quite a long time ago. I think one of the other things we did was we thought quite hard about what kind of guests we would have through the day, particularly what kind of guests we would have on Gabby's show. Should we have celebrity guests? Should we stick to sort of A-grade sportsmen and women? So we made those decisions all the way in the run-up, really, as we booked things. But it's been a great moment for the BBC, there's no doubt about that, and it's nice to see such praise for it.
Were there kind of unintended consequences of the way the coverage was put across the BBC channels?
Unintended consequences. Yeah. Well, I think if you got 24 live channels plus BBC One and BBC Three plus everything we were doing online, you definitely learn as you go a bit. I mean, some of the conversations we were having each morning were about what we show on BBC One as opposed to what we show on BBC Three, how we make sure that BBC One gets as many of the big moments as it can without simulcasting too much what might be on elsewhere.
Digital came into its own, didn't it?
Digital, I think it did. I mean, I felt, and you know, I think this was the BBC's grand plan for it, really, that this was a moment of digital watershed for the BBC, and I think for the British public's relationship with digital television and digital culture. I think people started using things like the red button, some of the on-demand services in a way they hadn't before, and we certainly learned a lot from it as well as benefiting from it, and I think we'll keep learning from it.
You know, you needed it to be a big hit because the channel was under a bit of pressure, wasn't it, after Flotilla Gate?
It didn't feel like that, no.
You should have.
Really?
Just kidding.
Yeah. Some presenters are never happy not to be chosen for these gigs. Yeah. Just never. You just can't win sometimes. No, I mean, look, there was a lot of pressure on because of the Olympics. Yeah. You know, we all felt the pressure at different times. You know, that one really had nothing to do with each other, but the London Olympics, broadcast solely by the BBC, was a massive moment for the BBC, for all of us personally. And of course, there was a degree of pressure around that. Now,
let's go back to Flotilla Gate and how
I love the gate thing.
Well, you know, we're so lazy journalists. We put gate and everything.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a disaster, but wasn't it a bit of a disaster in the way that the BBC handled the aftermath of it?
Well, I wouldn't call it a disaster. I think Lord Patton, our chairman, said it wasn't the BBC's finest hour, the pageant. I think that's true. I think the thing that I felt we let ourselves down a bit was the factual errors. The BBC shouldn't make factual errors, and there were a number on the day which we shouldn't do. On the other hand, I feel a little bit for the team on it, first of all, in the weather. Second of all, it was the same team who delivered the following night the Jubilee concert. That was produced for organised, paid for by the BBC, and it was I think one of the best live concerts we've seen in this country for many, many, many years. So I think the pageant day was definitely not our finest hour, but actually that team should deserve a bit of credit for what they did on other nights, some of which was absolutely world class.
Yeah, but what my point is that, yeah, the weather was really bad and you lost a hell of a lot of cameras, but the BBC is always so defensive about these things. Why not just come out and say, why not just come out and say, well, look, it was we had a problem.
Yeah, well, I think we did. I think there's a question of whether we said it soon enough. I think that's what you're getting at. But, for the chairman of the trust to say it wasn't our finest hour, for me to agree with that, I think there's an acknowledgement of that in that. Whether we did it fast enough is an interesting question.
Well, it wasn't just you and Chris Patton who were talking about it. I think we have a clip of somewhere else where it was being discussed. It'd be pretty strong not to think that was, inside the tent pissing out.
Well, I think, no, actually, I'm quite happy when Have I Got News For You does that. I mean, I think it's one of the great strengths of BBC One and the BBC that we're able to look critically at ourselves. And I think that's one of the brilliant things about Have I Got News For You. I think the BBC should be a confident place. It should be open about what doesn't quite go to plan and what does. And I think having a weekly show on the channel like that can look at the BBC and criticise it as well as look outside to the world of politicians and others, I think that's a great thing, actually. And
presumably also you were saying to Stephen Fry, get on there, more tweets about this, more.
Yeah, no, we were delighted by his tweets.
The problem for an incoming controller is that you really pick up the outgoing controllers. I was going to say backwash, but I don't really mean that. I mean the vision and the slate. When did Danny Cohen's BBC One kick in?
I felt it was more, because it does take a while, right? I felt a greater sense of ownership of it from Christmas last year. And that felt like the moment with the way we structured the schedule then, things like Great Expectations and The Borrowers and a few other things we did. It felt more own. But the truth is, whatever channel you're doing, and I think this is particularly the case with BBC One, you are always the beneficiary of some of the things your predecessors have commissioned. Frozen Planet was probably commissioned by Lorraine or Peter Fincham, one of the greatest pieces of factual television, I think, in many years. You're always going to be the beneficiary of that stuff on BBC One.
And so that's quite interesting. It takes quite a long time to create a legacy then?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it can. But, the truth is you are a holder of that flame. And frankly, you do one bit of it. The real success comes from the programmes and the people that have made them. So whether it's me or someone else, that's where the heart and the success of the channel lies, not with the channel controller.
Well, the real success, as you say, does come from the programmes. Let's look at entertainment. Your first major commissioned entertainment genre was The Voice. Let's have a quick look. Right. The Voice started very high on the ratings, huge, cost a lot of money, 25 million over 2 years is reported for the purchase.
It's reported.
So it was low?
It was less than that, yeah, but I'm not going to give you an exact figure.
Much lower?
I'm not going to give you an exact figure.
Anyway, now you're in a situation where you had a lot of critics of The Voice. The winner has apparently gone nowhere. And you are coming back because you've got this 2-year deal. How are you going to rescue it?
I wouldn't use the word rescue. I honestly, if someone at the beginning of the first series of The Voice said you're going to average 9 million, it's going to be the biggest first series of an entertainment show on BBC One in a decade. You might have a few problems when you get to the live shows and the audience will go down, but it'll go back up again with the final. I'd have grabbed their hand and shaken it and thought, fantastic. So in every series you do, a first series, you're going to learn stuff. Some bits will go better than the others. But I certainly know, and I certainly think our competitors know, that we've made a very, very big impact on Saturday nights, changed the landscape a bit on Saturday nights there, and have got a big hit. OK, before we go on to talk about that a bit more, I just want to pick you up on what you've just said. First series, teething problems, etc. There's two ways of looking at that. Yes, but it had been in Holland and it had been in America. So it wasn't a new show, it was a bought-in show. But the second thing is more interesting for independent producers. What you're essentially saying is that, by and large, if a first series doesn't work, you'll get a second series. No, I'm not saying that. I think in the first series, you've got to feel there's enough there to come back. And certainly, as I say, the biggest entertainment launch on the channel in a decade gave me more than enough confidence to come back. What was the first bit? The first bit was that it wasn't a new show, and it takes a while to get it right. I mean, it's been around the block. Yeah, but the American first series had its ups and downs as well. The idea that you take this off the shelf and everything is exactly the same, it's not the way it works.
But again, from the generation of that show, it was a buy-in. And that's a different kind of question as well before we go on and talk a bit more about changing the voice. It was a buy-in. Do you really want your big show on a Saturday night to be a buy-in of a show that has been round the block? Don't you want to be creating new entertainment, homegrown?
I do, but the way I look at that is that every so often a show will come along from somewhere else in the world, and we'll look at our slate and think nearly everything we do is homegrown, and that's right. But we shouldn't be afraid to look around the world. Sometimes we saw it with The Apprentice. You know, Apprentice is a fantastic thing to have on BBC One, bought in from elsewhere. I don't see any problem with every so often taking something from around the world in the mix, with the homegrown as the heart of the mix.
I would suggest that The Apprentice didn't cost 25 million for 2 years. It's a lot of money for the BBC.
Well, as I say, that's your figure, and I'm not saying what The Apprentice costs either. But I would say creatively, we should be open to learn from the rest of the world every so often, as well as having homegrown hits.
But have you actually been talking to Simon Cowell about Saturday night?
What we're doing tomorrow? We spoke during The Voice, yeah.
And are you considering commissioning Simon Cowell for Saturday night?
I'll consider commissioning any producer who brings a good idea to us.
So, but there are, of course it's not a yes, but I mean, the thing is there are lots of there are people that want to do big entertainment, big shiny floor shows Saturday night. There are new stuff coming out. Hasn't the BBC, I mean, it's a really difficult thing, this, isn't it? Because essentially what you're doing with The Voice is you're promoting, and it has to then have a kind of commercial impetus to it. Simon Cowell, hugely commercial. Does the BBC not have to do something different? Yeah,
but Kirsty, you're talking about one show a year on BBC One. On Saturday nights, we also have Strictly Come Dancing. We have Doctor Who. We have a show for sport and comic relief. We have Total Wipeout. We've got new shows coming next year. We've been developing a puppet show. We have maybe 10, 15, 20. We have Merlin. We have so many different ones. I think if you don't mind me saying, you're getting quite over-focused on one show, and you might lose track of the fact that we've got all these other things going on Saturday night.
I'll just focus on it for 1 second longer.
Equally successfully, by the way.
This morning, Jessie J tweeted that she is coming back to
I didn't know you're a follower of Jessie on Twitter. I heard that.
Are you pleased?
Yeah. Look, we haven't signed any contracts yet, so I don't want to say anything official. But we've said right from the end of the last series, we hope all the coaches come back.
Really? You don't want Kanye West then? You don't want Jay-Z?
Not at the moment, no, thank you. No, we said at the end of the series, we were really happy with our coaches lineup. We thought they had a very big impact, particularly for a first series, and we wanted them all to come back, but we haven't signed contracts, so I can't say anything official.
And will you be doing as many live shows for The Voice?
Probably not. No. We may do a few less.
You're going to change. That's going to be the change of focus.
Well, we're looking at a number of different things, because as I say, I think you learn in a first series even when it's a hit. But we're looking at the amount of live shows we do, the mixture of those different elements, and we'll have more details of that later in the year.
Some of your colleagues in other channels might think you've done rather well at DQF, BBC One, but there will have to be some cuts where independent producers can often pitch, as for example, tea time panel shows. I mean, where are the cuts going to come, and what are you looking for tea time? You've got a problem in a sense with new panel shows.
The cuts. We have been relatively protected, and the reason for that is that the BBC undertook a lot of research as we began DQF to look at where audiences were getting most value, and obviously a huge amount of value on BBC resides on BBC One, so we were relatively protected. The area that we have the most cuts in is actually at 10:35, because we wanted to provide less competition for Newsnight.
Thanks, we need all the help we can get. No, we don't, we're doing well.
But that's the area where we can, and I think there is a bit of risk attached to that, because that's often where we start new things. But what I'm determined to do is we keep enough of a pipeline there. We've got a new sitcom starting on Monday night, Citizen Khan, which is the first Asian sitcom on BBC One. We're also announcing today a new emerging writer and director drama scheme for BBC One.
So team writing?
Not team writing, no. The idea is to use the 10:35 slot. We did a project called True Love, which was an improvised drama series for 10:35 earlier this year. And I really want BBC One to be a place where we are innovative and experimental, as well as having the bigger shows. That gave us confidence. We're going to do a very different format, but that gave me more and more confidence to think 10:35, we can experiment, we can innovate more. So we're going to launch a scheme where we give chances to new writers to television, new directors to television to make their first piece. And I think that's quite a bold statement for BBC One to create that sort of room.
Just talking about Citizen Khan, at the Edinburgh Festival last year, you talked about the fact you wanted 4 new sitcoms by this summer. You've got Citizen Khan.
We've got Citizen Khan. We've got another one based on Lapland coming through, which is quite soon. We've got Blandings coming through quite soon. We're also announcing today, because these things, as you know, take time, Ben Elton's writing a new sitcom for us. We've just commissioned a 6-part series with Ben called Slings and Arrows, which is hugely exciting to have Ben writing a sitcom again on BBC One. We're also announcing today David Walliams is writing a new sitcom for us with the working title Autumn Leaves, 6x30 as well. So I think things are really moving in that, and I really hope people enjoy Citizen Khan. I think it's a really good piece.
So what opportunities are there in entertainment and comedy for producers on BBC One?
Well, Saturday nights are always challenging. We continue to look for those tea time shows. We're piloting a few at the moment. We've still got gaps. Friday at 8:30, where we've been playing things like Room 101 and Would I Lie to You? We always need new shows there.
You're wanting that slot's a bit tired?
Well, we're doing something quite different with it now, actually, because we were showing quite a lot of repeats in that slot, and we're trying to develop more entertainment shows for that 8:30 Friday.
High budget, low budget?
Decent budget, panel shows, normal sorts of budgets for panel shows. And then Saturday Night Peak is always a massive challenge, and we're always in the market to find the next big one. So please, everyone, keep bringing those to us too.
You talked about Frozen Planet, and I know that you have said that really natural history, BBC One is defined by what it does in natural history. So let's just have a look at a hugely ambitious Planet Earth Live. See, in the end, the problem was there wasn't that much that was live, was there?
Well, I love that show, actually. I think I will never, ever regret trying big, experimental, ambitious projects on BBC One. That's absolutely what we're there to do. And did everything about it go perfectly? No. Did actually get decent viewing figures, bring lots of people to natural history that don't actually watch natural history normally. I just saw some stats the other day, which I was really delighted to see, that 35% of people watching that hadn't seen a frame of Frozen Planet. And Frozen Planet was obviously a magnificent, magnificent series. So it drew a different kind of natural history audience that may not come to some of the other landmark things we did. It was live, it was experimental. We had the odd problem with live television, as you always do. But as I say, I'll never regret trying things like that, because that's what we're here to do.
Well, Janice Hadlow said in a session yesterday that these sort of things only work when there's a sense of awe, and that the audience is actually seeing things unfold, being carried along with it and being guided through it by an expert. Is she right?
Yes, she is, but you can use other presenters to introduce things. We had a massive range of experts around the world working on that show. And I know from our colleagues at, say, National Geographic in America, they thought this was the most ambitious, technologically innovative piece of natural history they'd come across. So we'll learn as we go, as you always do with these things. But overall, I think we did a pretty decent job, and the figures held up fine, and we brought new people to natural history.
And are you bringing it back?
We're looking at different ways of doing different kinds of live events, yeah. We won't bring it back in exactly that form, because, as I say, you learn bits as you go. But, yeah, we're talking to that team, and they are part of that magnificent, magnificent natural history team in Bristol, and we'll do plenty more with them. And will there be room for producers here to be bitching new factual stuff at the moment? Yeah. I always feel we've got slightly less than we need. I think you always feel that. So the particular areas I think we need factual are 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock midweek. We need more hours than half hours. There's various schedule changes that are taking place at the moment, which mean we just need a few less half hours than hours at the moment. So factual formats, features formats, access documentary. We've still got gaps for that in the second half of next year. And will some of this be talent-led? Because it's been clear that you've talked about, and in fact, in comedy, funnily enough, you brought back David Jason for, I think it was Royal, what was it called again? Bodyguard, Royal, yeah. But that's been dropped, hasn't it? It has, yeah. But the idea is do you want talent to come you want to bring national treasures back? Do you want old talent, new talent? I think we'll always want a mix. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt that on BBC One, the audience expects to see the biggest faces of British entertainment, the faces they love most in British entertainment. But, on Monday night, they'll see Adil Ray playing Citizen Khan. So we'll work very hard to bring through new people as well. But, yeah, I think the public expectation of BBC One is that you see the biggest and best faces and people you love. So you'll have, everyone from Bruce Forsyth, in grand old age of 84, to new talent coming through. The other area where you've made big changes, I think, is in drama. You've had 24 new commissions. Peter Bazalgette talks about Sunday night. What was he talked about? He talked about a bizarre heritage zone.
Is there a danger that the BBC's drama is turning into that? When you, obviously Parade's End is not on your channel, but you know, stuff coming up. You've got a lot of costume drama coming up.
Well, I think BBC One's always had a fair amount of period drama. I've not planned to change that because I don't think that was broken. I've tried to find a number of pieces which are not just, I love adaptations, you know, I adore being involved with The Great Expectations of Christmas, but trying to find original voices and original narratives for period. We saw with Call the Midwife, which has been a huge thing for us. So I think they'll always keep being in the mix. I personally am a big fan of that. I've always been interested in that connection between, you know, literature and history. And I think BBC One audiences feel that and they like period drama. So we've got a few interesting pieces coming up, but we've also got Hunted, a contemporary new spy drama. We've had Prisoners' Wives. We've had The Accused on at the moment. There's plenty of contemporary drama on the channel, but I really embrace period drama as well, and it's always been part of the channel's DNA.
Were you taken by surprise by Call the Midwife?
I don't think you... I think when something really goes pop, I don't think you ever know in advance. I think you can be really passionate about a show, you can think a show is really good, but most of the ones that I've been involved in that really have gone very big, I don't think you know in advance, and I don't think you dare to think it in advance, really, because you're always nervous about how things are going to do. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a brilliant show, it's brilliantly written, brilliantly produced, brilliantly performed, so it's great to see, but I don't think you can ever honestly say you knew it was going to happen.
But when you talk about, you know, you have got contemporary drama coming up, and you talk about the average age of the channel being 50, is there a danger that you're not grabbing a younger audience, particularly at the weekends? Particularly
no, I don't think you can say that with things like Doctor Who and Merlin. Sunday night, we've often had period drama. Some people might see that as criticism. I don't. Last autumn on Sunday night, we showed Spooks. Very, very contemporary drama. This autumn on a Sunday night, we're going to show a landmark history series. So I think we'll always have a mix like that, and I don't really think about it. It's Sunday night, we have to do X. It's Sunday night, this is a piece we think will fit the mood of that night. Sometimes that'll be period drama, sometimes it won't. I
mentioned David Jason in The Royal Bodyguard. Were you disappointed by that?
I would have liked it to have done better, but I think comedy is I think the thing I've learned, and you know, I've been lucky with some comedies that have worked very well for me in my commissioning time, but I think that I would still say I think comedy is the single hardest genre, and I really feel that. So some will work better than others, and I think, you know, been involved with the in-betweeners, some of them go that big, some of them aren't as big, and you learn as you go. They're very, very hard comedies. So you move on, you know, brilliant to be working with people like Ben, brilliant to be working with people like David Walliams, Citizen Khan. We'll keep looking for big hits. We've got The Royal Family back at Christmas. You know, there's plenty of good comedy on BBC One. We've got Mrs. Brown, which is a huge hit.
But in terms of budget for talent, because you've got Sky doing a lot at the moment, and you've got Jay out of Herder. I mean, she can poach who she wants now. Are you concerned about actually being able to attract the best talent?
Well, I think that's always a challenge at the BBC. I think it's true that we won't always be able to pay what other broadcasters are willing to pay. I think we rely on the fact that we pay relatively well and that people really want their best work on the BBC. I mean, I know that from...
You say that. Do you think people generally, it has to be the BBC?
Well, I don't think it has to, but I think often they do. You know, I think, you know, if Ben Elton was sitting here, I think he'd say he's really proud that it's on the BBC and he brought his new idea to us. Similarly, David Walliams, they wanted their big projects on the BBC. So, of course, we won't get everyone. Sometimes we'll be outbid. Sometimes people will leave and go elsewhere, but you get on with it and you find someone else, and that's often an opportunity to bring through new talent.
Cheryl Taylor was commissioning in comedy, said, you know, I'm paraphrasing now, that people are going to get put off by the BBC's attitude that sometimes if you don't have a hit quickly, you're dumped. That's the kind of general tenor, I think, of what she was saying.
When did she say that?
Well, I'm paraphrasing, but I think it was in Broadcast in May.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that. I think sometimes you bring some back because you really believe in them. We've just brought back in with the Flynns, which didn't do amazingly in its first series. It's a bit like what I was saying earlier. You've got to believe there's something, the core of something you really think is going to last there, and you give it another go. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can't because you want to do other things. You know, if we recommission everything, we'd never have anything new on BBC One. So you're always trying to juggle that thing between the new and the return.
Well, also having new things on BBC One, because if you actually look at The Apprentice and MasterChef, they were migrations from BBC Two.
Yeah.
So you're looking for your own versions of those incredibly successful shows.
Yeah, I think there'll always be a path of migration from BBC Two. You know, Miranda's about to return with her new series and it'll be on BBC One. But yeah, we need to find our own as well. I don't think we can't just rely on that pathway. A lot of those shows, actually, you're right, say, Kirsty, The Apprentice, MasterChef, Who Do You Think You Are as well. Some of those really big factual brands started on BBC Two, and that's always been the way. But it would be nice if we landed a couple ourselves directly too.
And you're going to be taking a lot of the new stuff on daytime as well, aren't you? I mean, the way things are going to change, BBC Two will be more repeats. So you're going to have to actually think strategically about where you spend your money. I mean, obviously daytime is slightly different, but early evening, for example, where are you going to spend most of your money?
Well, we spend most of it between 8 and 10.
Yeah.
That's where the biggest spend is. You know, obviously with things like EastEnders at 7:30, we spend some money there, and the One show is obviously an original commission every day. So, but the majority is spent there, and as I said, we'll spend a bit less at 10:35. We'll probably spend a little bit less at 7:30. Because of EastEnders and because of some other good current affairs shows we've got there, we can manage there, I think.
Do you think on One, though, that you can be adventurous? For example, you know, just in terms of who you're commissioning from, you would rather, presumably, or maybe not, commission from a kind of tried and trusted independent, or are you quite happy to take a punt on a brand new independent for One?
I think what I've always found is it's really hard to find ideas that work in prime time. And I don't think I can ever recall a time that I've thought we can't do this because it's from X, because it's really hard to find the ones you want to do. And if it's from someone you don't know, you find a way of making it work. So I don't think that's the case. In fact, I noticed, I think there was something in the broadcast this week about a company off the fence who've got their first BBC One commission. We did as part of our disability season earlier in the year a documentary about Nick Hamilton with a new small indie. So we'll look for those opportunities. And I think, as I say, the hard bit is finding the ideas you think you're going to work in prime time. After that, you make it work.
What about seasons? Have you actually got seasons in mind that people can contribute to, or are they all sewn up?
No, we've just done one on ageing, which was quite a big thing for us. I thought it was a really important subject to do. We place a lot of the content at 9 o'clock, which we haven't done as much of in the past on BBC One. And I don't really mind the numbers on those kinds of things, because I think, you know, if the channel's in good enough overall health, you can create room for that and just do a big public service season like that on BBC One. I want to do another one like that next summer. Honest answer is I don't quite know yet what it's going to be.
But are you open to ideas from indies?
Yes.
What the overarching theme of that season would be?
Absolutely. And also the other way they work sometimes is someone sends you one really good idea.
And then it gets nicked.
No. No, someone sends you one really good idea and that provokes you to think that's a really good basis for a season. So I can't remember exactly where that happened with the ageing thing, but you get an idea like, actually, we could do that, and we could build out from that idea, commission that idea, and then commission other pieces so that you get a season.
Commissioning style. I mean, you know, I think there's not an independent producer will tell you they haven't waited months, if not years, for a decision, not from you necessarily. Are you instinctive, or are you committee-based?
I think I'm instinctive. I think I know quite quickly whether it's one that I think is going to work for us. But I'm also quite conscious that I shouldn't decide them all, and that I'm not going to get it right every time, and that you've got really senior colleagues in, you know, commissioning in the genres, and sometimes they should just get on with the ones they believe in. And so sometimes I think you need to give your teams room to do that, and be very conscious it shouldn't be all your decisions. That would be a mistake, and you need to give people creative headroom, and you need to be very clear that you're not always going to be right. And so even sometimes if I think, oh, I don't get this, but Ben or Mark or, you know, one of the factual commissioners thinks I really believe in this, then I think it's right they get on with it.
So do you have an example off the top of your head where there's something that you definitely didn't think would be a goer, but you were convinced by your heads? There
was a couple at BBC Three. So I was quite sceptical at first about How Not to Live Your Life, which I grew to really love and did very, very well for us for 3 seasons. And I've said that to Dan Clark, you know, the writer and performer in it. I really wasn't sure about this at first, and I don't think I'd have done it if it was down to me. But I was completely wrong about it. I thought it was great. And sometimes you get it wrong in how you steer something, And thankfully, sometimes, you sometimes don't push your way. So I thought with Russell Howard, which has become a really important big thing for BBC Three, when we had lunch at early stage with Russell and his agent, we talked about how far you could take that show in terms of could you do Iraq and Afghanistan on that show. I thought at first you couldn't, actually, and I thought that would stretch what Russell was doing too much. And they tried it, and I was wrong. And Russell's found a brilliant way of going from the kind of ridiculous to the important in that show in I think, a really brilliant way.
What about on One, though?
Yeah, we're doing a few dramas that I wouldn't have probably done on my own. Yeah.
Like?
If you ask me now, I probably wouldn't think of the one on my head. But certainly but certainly there are some that Ben thinks I believe in this, we should do it, and that's fine. The idea that a single person should decide all of those decisions when A, you've got really senior colleagues, and B, you can't expect to be right all the time. I don't think that would be a healthy creative atmosphere to work in, or you'd get the best channel.
But overall, the success of the Olympics, I mean, that does put you under a huge amount of pressure, kind of sense these were big events which made BBC One blow.
Yeah.
And is there going to be the danger of a come down?
I think there is always the risk of that, and it's something that we've been thinking about quite hard strategically, that we knew we were going to have this big summer, and we're not going to have the Diamond Jubilee in the Olympics next year, obviously, the London Olympics. So we've been thinking quite hard about how we maintain momentum into the autumn. And we, one of the things we did about that was schedule those drama trails as part of the Olympics coverage at 8 o'clock every night, so that we created expectation and excitement about what we've got coming up over the autumn. Obviously, Strictly coming back will hopefully help that too. And we've been thinking quite hard about the shape of 2013 in terms of when we have our big kind of tentpole moments, so that we can try and maintain that momentum. But look, of course, are we going to have 3 weeks next summer where Britain wins all those gold medals? And of course not. But the truth is, how brilliant we had it. You can be cup half full or cup half empty about that. Brilliant, we had it. Let's keep going. Let's build off the back of it, and let's try and do really good work in the next few months.
But it's interesting, not necessarily in terms of that kind of sport, but actually BBC One, BBC is not strong on sport particularly, is it? I mean,
it's a funny thing to say after the Olympics.
Well, but that's the point, isn't it? I mean, after the Olympics, what are you doing? I mean, is there going to be a change of programming so that actually that kind of excitement is actually reflected in some of the more the ongoing different kind of sports programs?
Well, I think they're talking and thinking very hard now in sport about how we continue to reflect that. There's no doubt that sports rights are tricky for the BBC, but what we decided we had to do is focus on the biggest things we could. So maintaining Match of the Day, the Olympics, the European Championships and the World Cup, Wimbledon, we thought Formula One, sharing it now with Sky. We had to focus on some big things, the golf, the Open. I think BBC's overall coverage of sport, I mean, you can't argue with the quality of it after what we've just seen. And I know that the team in sport, both on TV and radio, will continue to provide brilliant services. And I think it's been a particularly important moment for BBC Sport, because I think they've shown themselves to be world-class, unrivaled world-class coverage, and will do that within the sports rights deals we can manage.
But in terms of instituting new sports-type shows, again, competitions, so forth, to try and engender what's meant to be going on in the community. I mean, are there things that you're interested in that perhaps are out with what you would normally commission or think of commissioning? Yeah,
I think the Olympics has made us all think about some of the things we could do differently, both in digital terms, but also in terms of sport and fitness. Some of that will fall, I think, quite naturally in some of the sports coverage we'll do, but we are looking at some proposals in that area, but we haven't commissioned anything yet.
What are you not interested in? I mean, travel shows, you are interested in travel. What kind of things are you actively not interested in for the channel?
I think it's quite hard to rule out a specific genre. I think that the thing that I always come back to is, does it feel big enough for BBC One? So sometimes you can get pitched an idea, or you can read a script, and it can be really good, but it feels sort of almost BBC One and a half. And it sits somewhere between the two channels, and you don't feel it's going to have quite enough scale or impact or the right talent to have quite the chops you need to get those BBC One size audiences and interests. So I don't tend to rule out areas. I tend to think more about, does it have those kind of big chops that could work on BBC One? And that's in every genre, really. That can be in drama or comedy. It can be in a factual genre or entertainment. It's the sense of scale, actually, that you're looking for, and originality. Rather than thinking, I can afford to rule out this area or that area. Because, the truth about being a channel controller is that you don't have all the answers, and you're reliant on other people's imagination to bring you brilliant things. And you want to keep it broad enough to allow that imagination to really play out. And one of the things you're trying to do is shape an overall strategy and think hard about whether that's going to feel it has enough scale as an idea for BBC One.
Because it's interesting, because you have, for example, in the genre of arts, I mean, there is, for example, obviously there's Imagine, But with a lot of arts migrating to 4, are you interested in programmes in the arts? Is that not what BBC One should be doing?
No, I think we have a pretty good art slate. I mean, as you say, we have Imagine, which I think in the last couple of years, I've tried to free up Palin to do, films about Egypt and really, some quite esoterical things. I like it when he does a film about Freddie Mercury or something, but I'm books in Alexandria I think, why not try that on BBC One at 10:35? So we do that. We've got a new series of Fake or Fortune coming back, which I think is a really high-end, not commissioned by me, predecessor, high-end art series. So we'll keep that in our mix.
Well, you've got a situation, though. You've got the BBC One as the go-to channel for kind of, the nation gets together. You wonder in the BBC whether they just concentrate on that channel and ditch the rest.
On BBC One?
Yeah.
I don't think the audience would like that in the end, would they? I could what?
You could just run the world.
Thank you, Kirsty.
Let's have some audience questions now. We've got a packed audience, so let's get the lights up because I've been talking long enough, so let's get something from the audience. Yep.
Any lights?
No lights? Okay, let's take the first question. Down left, thanks.
Okay, yeah, just picking up on talking about the sports coverage of the Olympics and so on.
Where are you from?
I'm Justin Eade from Glimpse, and I worked with the BBC for about 10 years. I'm basically just very interested in the side. In fact, last Wednesday, The Guardian wrote a very interesting article about the legacy of the Olympics in terms of the uptake of physical activity and the health implications. And obviously, there's huge amounts of awareness on health at the moment, and I did talk of 60% obesity in this country in the next few years. So I wonder, is there an opportunity off the back of that side of things of the Olympics to really sort of run with that physical activity in sport?
I think there is, and I think, as I say, I think we'll find ways of doing that in sports programmes. I think we'll find ways of doing that in magazine programmes like The One Show. I'm completely up for finding ways of doing that in separate, unique programmes. We've just got to get the ideas right. It's good when there's sometimes a kind of strong, I suppose, moral purpose behind an idea, but it's got to be a great telly idea as well to get people to come to it. So how we get that...
Is it more in format? Are you looking more for formats for that?
I think so, maybe, yeah, but I honestly don't know yet. It's got to be a big enough, great telly idea for us to engage with it. But I think we should if we can, yeah.
Questions? Audience questions? Yes, right bang in the middle. Can we get the microphone along? Anyone else while we're getting the microphone along? Yeah, let's take your question.
Charles Sturridge, I'm Chair of Directors UK. I was very interested to hear what you were saying about finding an opportunity for younger and emerging directors to work on BBC One. I think there are very few opportunities for young directors to work on original work. How are you going to set about identifying them? Yeah,
so Ben and I have just put this scheme together, and what we both felt was that we can... It's my overall feeling about BBC One. If it's going well enough, you can make sure you've got enough room for... If it's going right, you should do well enough in your schedule, and you should also make room for innovation and experimentation. And I think just because BBC One's a big channel, we should do that too. And actually, you can make a bolder statement if you do it on a channel like BBC One. So we're aiming to strip it across 2 weeks. We're aiming to work with one particular producer so that we can get... the money on screen, because frankly, when you're doing slightly lower cost drama, if you split it up everywhere, the viewer is not going to be rewarded by that. And the idea is to work with emerging theatre writers, emerging directors who haven't done a full drama before, giving them an opportunity to do their first piece for television. And I'm really excited about it. We'll do, another thing that we announced today. We're doing anniversary of World War I's in 2014, and we're doing a major new World War I drama called The Ark about nurses on the front line, which Sarah Phelps, who adapted Great Expectations, is going to do for us. So, we need to keep funding those big pieces. We're doing also a new one called Quirk, which Gabriel Byrne is going to star in. So we're getting quite a lot of big new pieces, but I want us to find the room to experiment as well. And I think it's a really great opportunity, really great. And it's great to hear people responding well to it.
Are you looking for somebody that's going to be able to deliver you the next EastEnders? Because although you had a great Christmas Day, EastEnders has been on the slide.
I think we've just come back very strongly, actually. I mean, one of the things I was worried about is EastEnders being off BBC One for 2.5 weeks during the Olympics. And I think that's the longest period I can certainly recall as a fan of EastEnders that's not been on BBC One. And I must admit to being nervous that, soaps are about enjoyable habit. And I was quite nervous about that, because obviously during the Olympics, it did pretty well actually on BBC Two. It got 5 million even against the strong Olympics coverage. But it's bounced back and is actually up I think, where it was before the
But
Olympics.
you're still behind Coronation Street, aren't you?
I don't know. I don't look at their figures every day.
You
But
don't like day trade on your figures in the morning, do you?
No, I look at our figures. I see how they're doing, but I wouldn't know exactly the averages across the two.
More audience questions? There's somebody up at the back. There's one here first. Can take the microphone here and up to the back, if you could keep your hand up. Let's just get this question here. Great. And one right at the back. Thanks.
Hello, Tim Wellage from Rugby Media. The BBC recently announced their companion experience for the Antiques Roadshow due to launch later this year. Do you have a view on what particular genres work best in a multi-screen living room?
Well, I think we're still experimenting, so I'm not sure we know. And I think that means we should experiment with all the genres, actually. So great to do one in Factual like that. We had a lot of success and also learned a lot with the Voices online stuff, which went very, very well for us indeed. So I think we'll experiment across a lot. I think the big question for me is, with connected TV, how much longer is it going to be about two screens, or how much longer is it going to be about one joined up screen? And I don't know the answer to that yet, because obviously not a lot of us have got them yet. But in a way, and then the question we need to ask from that is, will that change creatively what we do? You know, is there a difference creatively between what you do on a dual screen experience or one joined up screen? So I think we need to experiment with that quite a lot as well, actually. And there's a lot of rightful excitement about dual screen, but the question for me is, will it be actually quite quickly replaced by excitement about connected TV? And what will that mean creatively? And will it be the same, actually? Will we just learn that we've squashed the two together and the experience we're doing with dual screens actually just end up on the same screen?
Question right at the back.
Hi there, Gavin Smith from the Comedy Unit. I was just wondering, with the appointment of Shane Allen, what sort of impact coming from comedy in Channel 4, is there any sort of things you think that will impact on BBC One comedy?
Shane's a fantastic signing for us, and it's brilliant he's joining us. I think he will bring the skills that have made him good at his job so far. He's got great talent relationships, he's got very good instincts, he's very good with people, he's deeply passionate about comedy, which I think anyone who's worked with him would know. I think it will present new challenges for him, because you know, similar challenges for me when I went from moving from E4 Channel 4 to the BBC. But the challenge is to adapt to it and have that wider palette. And from talking to him quite a lot about it, I think he's very excited about commissioning comedies for BBC One and BBC Two, 3 and a bit of 4. So I think he'll make a brilliant impact. But I think he'll bring the skills he's got and make it work in a new environment.
More questions? There was another hand up somewhere, I thought, on the left. Yeah. Oh, right round here.
Hi, Stuart Burridge from Airborne TV and Film. Going back to what Kirsty picked up on earlier about reinventing or bringing back sport onto BBC One, given the huge success of British boxing in the Olympics, any thoughts about bringing championship boxing back onto BBC One?
You a boxing fan?
Not massive. I did enjoy the Olympic. I thought the Anthony Joshua and the Nicola Adams. I thought she was, they were sensational, weren't they? But it's not my favourite sport. The honest, I don't know. I don't know exactly what plans the team have got in terms of sport, in terms of boxing on going forward from the Olympics. I think we do a little bit of it. I think we do it quite well on 5 Live as well. I think people like Buntsy are brilliant. But I don't know the exact plans for boxing post-Olympics, I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
But would you be interested in a good boxing show?
Not a show, no. But should we have boxing as part of the sports output on the BBC? Yeah, quite possibly.
Another question? There's somebody else. I thought there was someone further up on the left that wanted to ask a question. Well, at this point, I'm going to take a pause, and we are going to, because Danny has put together, not himself, obviously, the look ahead. Something of what's coming up. Let's just look, though, at, for example, the kind of big shows that Michael Palin's been doing, and the latest one is Brazil. What is going to be the future of all that?
Do you mean in terms of travelogue?
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll, working with, it's a privilege working with him, actually. I mean, he's done so much and he's so remarkable. I hope he may do other things for us, but I think we probably could look for, alongside Michael, other people to go on interesting journeys for us. I think anthropology, travel with a charming guide has been a really good thing on BBC One. I think other talented people coming through to do that alongside Michael will be good for us.
So you're looking for the next kind of Michael Palin?
Yeah, without saying there'll be no more Michael Palin, because it'd be great to keep working with Michael. But charming guides. I mean, I think one of the qualities those people have is you like spending time with them. You like being in their company. And certainly you feel that when Michael's your travel guide. So who are the right talent to do that? Where do they go? What their particular shtick is something we're quite keen to find.
And that would also be the case for David Dimbleby.
Yes, David's doing a bit for us. He's doing a tour around Britain on his boat.
As you do.
As you do. It's a small boat. Noah Abramovich is here. And obviously his Question Time work continues.
I want to take another couple of questions. I've got a couple more questions of my own, but I just want to make sure that I'm absolutely getting people in from the audience. Yes, one there, and is there anyone over the other side? Let's take this one just now.
Hi, Josh Halliday from The Guardian. Danny, there was some talk of a new quiz show. Excuse me. Talk of a new quiz show for a game show for BBC One. Are you able to elaborate on that? Is that something that's happening?
We're doing one called Britain's Brightest, which has the working title Britain's Brightest. It might be that one. It's a kind of intelligence test show that we hope to launch next year from RDF. It's a smart entertainment kind of shape for an intelligence test. So we hope that will launch early next year.
Any more questions before I ask another couple? I think people would be quite interested to know whether you're going to be here next year.
What? Am I getting a kind of blackball from the festival?
Yeah. No. Everybody is very well aware of the Vision job. Are you applying?
Honest answer is I don't know. People have asked me, and the honest answer is I don't know, because I've been very focused on the Olympics and getting through all of that, and it's obviously happened very recently. I'm going to think about it. What's worked really nicely for me is that George has put in place Roger Mosey as an acting head, and it's given me a bit of time to think about it. So I've got a few weeks.
What would the attractions to you be of going for it?
Well, I love telly. And learning about different bits of telly is always good, and learning about different forms of management is always interesting, and I'm always interested in other channels and learning more about BBC Two and BBC Four. But to be honest, I really love the job I'm doing now, and I've been doing it a couple of years nearly, and I love it, and I feel very privileged.
The danger would be you'd be running out of jobs before you're 40.
So I'm thinking about it, I haven't decided whether to do it, and as I say, I've got a few weeks to think about it. That's the honest answer. I wouldn't kind of rule myself in or rule myself out. I just haven't decided.
But the thing is that, let's all hope there's a new kind of, on the front foot culture at the BBC, and that George leads that. So therefore, if George was to ask you, what would you do?
Well, I don't think he would, because you've got to have a proper process. So I don't think, one thing you and I know about
process with this.
Yeah, one thing you know about George is, he does the right thing and he does things properly. So I don't think that would happen. But I think you've got to make the right decisions for you and your family, rather than, be told what job to do by your boss. So I'm going to think about it and whether it's the right thing for me and my wife.
Is it also a case that you've got the opportunity here, you're running the biggest channel, you've mass popular appeal of this channel. Why leave it when there's more to do?
That's exactly the question.
But if you leave it too soon, what will you won't have the legacy thing.
Well, I'm not that bothered about it. I mean, I've been doing it 2 years. You commission stuff for the next year, so if I did go for it, I could think to myself there was loads of stuff on 13, 14 I was involved as well. But as I say, I haven't decided. I don't know whether it's the right thing for me, and if I do, then I'll apply. But I've got a bit of time to think about it, so that's what I'm going to do.
So if you were to describe how you want...
How many different ways are we going to ask this question?
Oh, how many ways? Let me think.
Yeah.
But the main thing is you haven't ruled yourself out of it.
No, and I wouldn't rule myself. I wouldn't rule myself in because I'm gonna. Now the Olympics is done, and you could only focus on the Olympics during the Olympics. And I don't think I did much other work in that period at all. I've got a bit of time to think about it, and that's what I'm going to do.
But looking ahead to and showing us that tape and imagining what the channel is going to look like in the next year, how do you want BBC One to be characterised?
I want it to be very high quality. I want it to be entertaining. I want it to tell you things about the world you may not have known. I want people to love it and enjoy the programmes. I think the great privilege of running the channel is you can go from a meeting about an important panorama subject to a meeting about a brilliant drama or comedy script, and that's the amazing range it has, and I like it to be known for that range, and something, you know, you want people to keep pressing BBC One first. That's the job.
Danny Cohen, thank you very much indeed.